The time is 5:01, and I'd like to call the meeting to order. Lisa, can we please have a roll call?
Director Seaver,
Here.
Director Rice,
Here.
Director Karati Simon,
Here.
Director Sauter,
Here.
Director Lappy,
Here.
Superintendent Harmon.
Here.
And Board Chair Raha.
Here. Thank you. Meeting's called to order. We have a quorum. Next item is recognition of any guests or visitors who wish to address the board. And we have, I believe, Mr. Randy Johnson.
Yep.
From Hoagland Bus Company, and he wants to discuss leasing versus purchasing.
Am I up?
You may
Oh,
approach.
great. Good deal. I'll come around real quick with some handouts. So what I've done is basically put together a simple outline of what the differences is between direct purchasing, leasing, which you guys are currently doing, and lease purchasing, which is basically financing. And just get these out real quick.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. And as you can tell, I don't know where you want me, right over here? Is that good? All right. So I just basically listed everything out. We'll go over your current fleet. Currently you have 4 of your buses leased with Hoagland's until 2023. And then I list the purchase price of those units right in there. The first 3 were at 35 and the last one was at 48. And that's just because of the term of the lease. So the first 3 are at 5 years and the other one was at a 3-year lease. And I think they did that so that they all came due about the same time. And then you've got a number of used buses and I listed out their value. And as you can tell, your next oldest units are 7 years old. You've got a 10-year-old and then you've got 2 that are over 10. Typically around the 10-year mark, their value drops down to nearly nothing. And that's just basically because there's nobody that buys a 10-year-old bus. Although if anybody in the room would like to buy one, I know somebody who has about 100 of them. Typically in an annual year, Hoagland Bus Company crushes about 240 buses, and most of those are 10 plus years old. And then the rest we hope to cross our fingers and sell out to somebody. So again, if you're looking for a used bus, call me. About 5 years ago, the school came to me and wanted to figure out a way to get on a regular basis of having safe, reliable equipment. And at that time, I presented these 3 things. And again, it's been about 5 years, so I'm gonna walk through them again. Nothing's really changed. So on all 3 options, the warranty is, there's no difference. A lot of people think if you're leasing, you need an extended warranty. If you want an extended warranty, you just purchase an extended warranty. On all 3 of these, it doesn't matter to me. So I'm not here trying to sell one of them because I don't make any more money if you guys go to a bank. The only one who makes extra money is the bank for loaning you guys the money. In the first example, we talk about purchasing a bus. And that's where you guys spec one out, and I've already done that with Brian. Your particular school bus garage requires a certain size of bus. I don't know if any of you guys have ever been there, but it's kind of interesting parking.
Explain it to them.
In order to get the bus into the parking spot, they actually had to bust open concrete so that the crossover mirrors will fit in there. And then a normal human being my size cannot walk behind the bus once the door is closed because there literally is not enough room. I'm not skinny enough, I don't know who Brian is, but I'm not. And we've tried a number of things, making them a little bit shorter, a little bit longer. Really the issue is just the bus garage was built 100 years ago when buses were 59 passengers, not 71 passengers. And back then they fit just fine. No, they don't. Most schools have a 77 passenger product. So about 98% of school districts do a 77 passenger. So if you were just to purchase out what fits in your bus garage, your post-tax price is $97,672. Now, what you're doing in the leases is you're actually financing just the time that you have the bus. So if it's a 5-year lease, we take that purchase price and we figure out what it's gonna be worth at the end, which you guys know now is $35,000. And that dollar amount in the middle, we go to the bank and we go, here, give me what the finance is worth. And if you flip over the page, let's see, 2 pages, you'll actually see what to this. You'll actually see what the bank gives me back. We typically go out to about 4 or 5 different banks. Santander's typically the lower one. That's who you folks have been using. In this example, you'll see your 3 and 5 years. The reason that I gave you guys this spreadsheet is because it's really easy for you to tell what your interest payment is. So if you go to the interest column on the very first one, you'll see if you were to do a 3-year lease, it would cost you $4,112 to do so. That's what the bank charges. I like to give this sheet because then it's really upfront what it's costing the folks. And you can go on the 5-year, is the next one down. Your interest would be $6,527 to do that. There's always an option at the end of all leases to purchase them, okay? The other thing to think about when leasing is what's right behind here, this operational guide, because it's the only option on this list out of the 3 options that I get the bus back. I'm gonna want it back in a certain way. I'm not gonna want it smashed up, I'm not gonna want bald tires. And this basically what this is saying. The nicest way of explaining this is if it passed state inspection, it passes my inspection, okay? The difference would be the state doesn't care if there's a big gouge down the side, I do. That'd be the only time. So all of these wear and guideline issues are basically state standard, what you would get during your inspection. If you do a lease purchase, which is the 3rd option, you're just taking that purchase price and financing it, okay? And I listed that out again on the front page, and then it's on your spread out sheet. There you'll notice the longer you have a term, the bank makes more money. And that's the same thing that happens with us. So on a 3-year, they're only making $2,000, but on a 7-year, they're making $7,000. So over the term of that particular finance. I know I went through that information really quickly. I'm kind of one of those people. As you can tell, I'm not very flowery. I've been working with you guys for a little over 20 years now. Right now, the school this is probably the best your fleet's ever looked. Jesse worked extremely hard to get it up, but the problem that we experienced back then was getting a bus through the school board, no offense, was really difficult because you guys have other things that are more important to purchase. So it was always the last thing. So the buses got older and older and older, and we spent lots more money repairing them. That's why we went into the lease avenue, because this gets you guys fresher, safer equipment. And I recommend doing that here forward, especially for your routes. And then if you needed to replace some of these older ones, maybe purchase 1 or 2 out of the lease fleet. It gives Brian some really good intel because he's already had the buses for 3 or 5 years, so he's gonna know which ones are good and which ones are bad. But at this time, like I said, over the last 20-some years, this is by far the best the fleets look. And it's been primarily because of the leasing. You guys have been able to keep fresher equipment, more safer equipment, a lot more updated equipment, just by doing the stupid amount of lease schedule. I know, I'm speaking with the superintendent, I know you guys have some money that you're designated to transportation and you were trying to figure out which direction to go, and that's kind of why I asked me to come in, was to talk about what's available to you and then what I see out there. I cover Highway 94 to the Canadian border, so I have the northern 2/3 of the state. So most of my schools are about this size.
So we do number 2. Right now, we're up.
Right now, you're on the lease program for your route buses. I believe you guys have 1 contracted route, if I said correct. Or you guys still got 1 contracted route?
No.
Okay.
You say they're all.
They're all up, okay. Yep. So right now, you've got 4 that are leased, and then the rest of them are fairly old.
So we have all these,
all these ones up here.
At the very top,
These ones are leased, these ones are we own,
Okay.
correct,
right?
correct.
Yeah.
The bottom 5 you guys own.
So is the recommendation to keep doing lease?
So that was gonna be the discussion.
Yeah, that was easy.
Session.
Okay.
So this was informational, so you heard it
Yep,
from the source and you
Yep.
got to see what
what the real
the
numbers are.
numbers did and what happens with the fleet.
Yep.
And then we'll discuss that here. So I do have one question.
Sure.
And I think I asked it last time, but I think the board should hear that too. If you were to make a recommendation on the 5 that we own,
Yes.
and what would be a yes and then next step? Like for sure you should look at this,
You mean which one you should get rid of first?
well, I think it's obvious, but then,
I think that your expertise should then go to Brian, because he's playing, his fingers are in each one of these ones that you own. So I guess I would defer to him first. Brian, which one would you, out of your used units that you own, which one would you like to see go first? I know you have one that's coming up with a big repair.
Yeah, bus 4 has a big
Four.
repair coming, and old bus 2 has about 123,000 miles on it, I think.
Okay.
So where do those fall underneath this?
Yeah, or is one of those a 7-year-old?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
so one of the
oldest
7-year
one is old bus 2,
Okay,
and then bus 4 is like the 7-year-old one.
so one of the top, off the top of your list and one off the bottom.
So the 2 over 10 years are still good?
One he'd like to get rid of.
yeah, one.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Jesse took really good care of the equipment.
Right.
Not that Brian isn't, but.
I used to be a bus driver, I kinda know which ones are good and which ones are
Which one rides the best?
I don't think any of them are very good, especially when you're the driver.
That's for another conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah, guys, if there's ever any questions, I've left my cell phone number and email. Don't hesitate to give me a call or an email. I can definitely get back to you.
Thanks, Rick.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. That's fine.
The next item on the docket is to approve the agenda. Looking for a motion to do so. Motion by Jackie. Support? Support by Cindy. Comments or questions on the agenda? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 5 is to approve the June 28th, 2021 regular meeting minutes. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Shelley. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Clarice. Comments or questions on the minutes?
I did talk to Lisa regarding the minutes.
Okay,
Some corrections, minor corrections on them.
okay, all right. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving on then to item 6. Superintendent's report. Mr. Norman.
Sure, I'll just go down the list. I met with Brian Yuritich from the NLC the other day and talked about paras and special education students and what the NLC offers. Talked about some things going on at the Vaughn and potential realignment based on classrooms and being more efficient with use of paras. And so we went over some scenarios there and met with Mr. Hancock, and he's planning on working with his staff to make some of those recommendations and changes based on how to better support our students. Any questions on that piece? Also,
No, that was, I was just thinking of, that was this, like special ed parents or all the parents, kind of like looking at a realignment and.
D, all the above.
Okay.
Yes. Delta is offering a pretty neat internship opportunity for students, and it's not just Chisholm, but surrounding areas. 17 years and older, they had put a deadline on, but that deadline has been extended, so they're still taking applicants. They had originally put a cap of 35 students, and then they moved it to 50, and now I think that number is gonna continue to go up. It's a great work experience opportunity for students. In a previous setting, we were able to give students up to 2 credits for work experience, so I had a conversation with Mr. Morrison about what the possibility is there. And we would need to get a licensed instructor. It's a summer program, it's around 9 credits. There is an area group that will support that, and we're exploring it. So hopefully, we can continue to work on that in partnership with local businesses like that to help our students. The other day, I had Brian Carl come up and take a tour of our fitness center, and I don't know that it's in this working session, but for sure it's in the next if it's not in this one. He gave a proposal to do safety inspections throughout the year, cable tensions. After COVID, you can't have certain grips and tears in the seats and other things, so kind of a facelift for the fitness center and an overall safety inspection, which I couldn't find any records of anything happening. 2014 was the last time I saw someone had been in there. Just doing an update on specs of equipment. So I'd recommend as we move forward, we look into that partnership. He owns Northern Fitness Solutions. He's based in Hermantown. I've worked with him in the past, and he brought himself and another gentleman up, and they're gonna give us some more information as we move forward on what that might look like on a cycle of replacement. There were certain machines in there that actually aren't working right now. So he would give us a disposal, exchange, all that information once he gets it back to us. But he did get us the proposal on at least the safety inspection piece. And I would definitely recommend we do that, to not put ourselves in jeopardy of a lawsuit or something, that we did all the tension checks and safety specs on. Joe is gonna be in here, and he just stepped out. We've had a number of meetings with different school information systems and learning management systems. We have not gotten all of the bids yet, and I know that's another talking point for tonight. They're all very similar or same as far as cost. Some have some upfront costs, some have per user costs, and some have a blanket cost of your district will pay X. So we did not get the information by the time of the meeting, which we were hopeful for. But we've had some pretty good conversations with them, and we'll just keep you informed as we get information. And then he just talked about transportation, so he beat me to the punch on that conversation. We're gonna have a discussion about the job postings and applicants and such during the working session, I believe, not here. So we'll chat more about that. I met with Mr. Provenzino and talked about there's a teacher that is owed a 0.2 full-time equivalent who happens to have a community ed license. And we have a community ed opening. Cost-wise, it's about a lateral cost slide. I had shared if the individual is interested and willing to fill their bucket to a 1.0 with that opportunity, that I think it would be a wise choice for us to explore that. That license is becoming harder and harder to come by, and it does default to this chair if you don't have someone. I'd be willing to do it if I had to, but I would much rather have someone with a license in that seat if we could do that. And so if we greenlight that as a board, then I'll work with Tim on making that happen. We did get a resignation letter regarding Indian Education Director, and I'm going to ask about posting that as well. And on a fun side note, I got to visit the Vaughn and see summer school and Officer Purdy there with his vehicle and lights and sirens and talking to the kids about safety, which it's always great to get out to the schools and see the littles and, always the fun part of the job is when you can do those things, so was able to do that as well.
Any questions for Mr. Norman? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, moving on then to the next item on the agenda, long-term facility maintenance 10-year plan. Kristen.
I don't know where you want me to stand. Good evening, Chair Raha, Superintendent Norman, school board members. The papers, I'm actually going to ask you to pay attention to the handouts that were provided when we got here today, that the other ones are not reflected well in the packet. So if the audience also wants to grab those, please feel free. Long-term facility maintenance, this plan is the first step of essentially the summer levy cycle. So what school business managers are doing this time of year is we are entering numbers in to get it ready for the levy, of which you in its entirety will see in September. You'll approve in some form, your taxpayers will see what you've approved or the impact in November, and then ultimately you will certify your levy in December. So everything we're doing now is the initial step to setting up what your levy is going to look like for collection year 22, which is your 22-23 school year. So tonight, the long-term facility maintenance is a 10-year plan that the Department of Education requires you to have. One sheet is revenue, that's actually the multi-page document, and that's the document that ultimately on the July 26th school board meeting you will approve. And then, well, all of this you will approve, but the number will come from the revenue. And then you also have the expenditure side, a little bit smaller print format. I do apologize for that. We're trying to fit all the columns into one page. What these documents indicate to the Department of Education is to say, what is this district's plan as it relates to our facilities moving forward? Now, because we are we're not a metro district, we're not a large district, we're capped with our maintenance formula. We only get so much money per the age of the buildings, the number of students that attend. There's only so many dollars available. Some of the bigger districts in the state, it's carte blanche. They've just set what they need, and that's what their taxpayers pay. So we are rather limited in what we can do without voter approval, and yet still use what the formula allows. So drawing your attention to the revenue, the multi-page, and I'm going to ask you to look in the column that says FY 2023, because again, that's the fiscal year we're levying for, even though collections will take place in 22. As you work kind of your way through, you can see that it comes down to formulas and what the state is looking for. On page 3, line 34, you will see it says grand total long-term facility maintenance revenue. The amount is $436,851. That is our total revenue. That is what I'm going to ask the board to approve on the 26th. You will have a resolution, because to do that, usually the state requires us to submit minutes to show that you approved the plan, because we don't have enough time for this submission by the end of July. If you do a resolution, that counts in lieu of minutes. So that's why you will be doing a resolution. If you go farther down to the bottom of the page, you can see the long-term facility maintenance aid, and then what part is the actual levy. So it's almost a 50-50 split. So that is what we're going to be asking for, and then I'll draw your attention to the expenditure application. And it doesn't tie out necessarily, but you can see how we work our way through. The first year on the expenditure application is your 2021 base year. These were projects that you were doing with some of the debt that you issued. So as we phase out and those numbers get smaller, as you work your way through the 10 years, it's because you're running out of that issued debt, and now you're just running off of what you can generate per the state formula. So the amount of money we can spend goes down significantly You're looking at for 2023, about $78,000 just in health and safety. And I know that asbestos is on your radar for discussion tonight. We do have a small amount set aside for asbestos abatement. And then you can see kind of what we're looking at doing as far as maintenance. Quite frankly, there just isn't a lot of opportunity to get a lot of projects done. As you move forward through the course of the 10 years, this is our estimate. It needs to stay this way. Again, we're setting the levy for 1 year, not for 10 years. And so this can be adjusted at any time moving forward. And then at the very bottom, Fund 1 and Fund 6. Fund 1 is what we do annually, and then Fund 6 is what you're looking at as far as your debt issue and running through that, what I would refer to as building construction. So that is a lot. I don't know with the new board members, I think you've seen this document before. I would assume you have, but I at this time will open it up for questions or comments. Again, you will see this again on the 26th, just for straight approval.
So Kristen, and probably just kind of talk about this, but so coming out of 2022, when you look at the total annual 10-year plan expenditures on there, it's like significantly higher than like projected. So is that rounding out a previous cycle, and that's how much
Correct.
we actually expended based upon like the capital approval? Okay. I was just
Yes,
curious.
that is exactly it.
Okay. It's just a huge difference, isn't it?
It's a huge difference, and
You're spending $400,000 in.
yeah, and you're closing out prior projects.
Okay.
Like, and you know, sometimes this rolls through and it's a timing difference, because if your fiscal year ends and you start July 1, I mean, and we're Minnesota, our projects are happening in the summer, and it really just depends on what month in the summer you happen to hit the project, and, you know, completion and payment depends on what fiscal year it lands, quite honestly.
That makes sense.
Can you give a clarifying answer to why it looks like a bell curve in 26, 27, 28 versus where you take a considerable jump from on line 30?
Are you looking at revenue or expenditures, Adrian?
The revenue side of it, so 23, 24, 25, on line 30, we're going from roughly 400 and change up to 1.1.
With part of this, and realize these documents were also created with the collaboration of both Ingenza and Baird. So it's working through the strategic plan and different things that potentially could happen with the strategic plan. So it's fleshing out those numbers, saying the strategic plan is on the district's radar. Again, you're not married to it. This isn't saying it has to stay this way, but it's identifying that there are some things that the district could be looking at doing. And we want the state to have the heads up, and our public, quite honestly, these are public documents, to say we could be looking at projects as we move into those future years. I know, at least I believe that some of you have heard that, you know, potentially facilities questions could be coming in the form of in 23 or 24, which would then timing wise would start hitting those. Please don't let that make you nervous. It's just identifying that you know it could exist. You don't have to do it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So when they're approving, they're just approving.
Yes, the state wants you to, their job in making you do a 10-year plan is to have foresight into, so you don't have those kind of quick moments of, oh my gosh, I wasn't thinking of this, or you really are trying to use taxpayer dollars in the best fashion. You really are trying to be mindful and planful. That's their way of saying, please establish what you think you're doing, but they only hold you to the year by year. And if you didn't spend what you levied, then it just gets adjusted for the next year. That's the goal of what the state was trying to do, because legislatively, they gave you more money. And so they're saying as far as what we used to receive just for general maintenance revenue before smaller districts were eligible for long-term facility maintenance. And so they gave you cash, and in turn to the legislatures, they're saying, yes, but we're taking care of our communities because look at the plan that we're trying to create with the additional revenue we're receiving. And I want to say that legislation probably passed 5 years ago now. So I lose track of years the older I get, unfortunately.
Anything else, Kristen?
No, that's all I
Any
have.
questions for Kristen? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you very much. Okay. Move on to item 7, which is correspondence, and we have none. Item C and D will be handled in the working session above that. Okay? Item 8 is the consent agenda. You see accounts payable for the month of June, and accounts payable for the first week of July, and the payroll for the first half of June, and the payroll for the second half of June. Looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So made.
Motion is by Clarice, is there support?
Support.
Support by Jackie. Comments or questions? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Now for the action portion of our agenda, item 9. Item A is to approve the purchase of security camera upgrades for the amount of $13,700. And also to approve the purchase of 9 75-inch Clever Touch interactive whiteboards with carts for a total of $43,416. And miscellaneous installation costs, hardwood cables and adapters for a total of $1,800. So we are looking for a motion to approve item A in the action portion of our agenda. Motion is by Cindy. There's support by Shelley. Comments or questions?
Nice to see that it went down 20 grand, but that was kind of a nice
Yeah.
surprise.
Yeah, that was it was nice, very, very nice, and
So do they have,
thank you.
I mean, they have these all decided where everything's going and the weight boards and
That's my assumption that Joe was on,
already
that work?
done that. Okay.
they went with Tierney Brothers and got a much more user-friendly bid. And a faster timeline, I believe, to fill it as well.
Oh, that's good, nice.
Good, very good.
Cheaper and faster.
Yeah,
This
that's what we
is
like.
crazy.
What a revelation. Anyway, so we have a motion and a second to approve item A on the action portion of our agenda. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Item B, approve the PSEO contract with Wasabi Range College.
I'll make a motion.
Jackie makes the motion. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Clarice. Comments or questions?
Since this is the same as it always.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we just have to really be sure that they follow through
Well,
with
this is,
that.
yeah,
That
that's
is the
something that I was,
biggest thing.
you know, because we've had incidences in the past where we were not informed of students dropping out,
Yeah.
things like that. So that's between the counselor from my gathering and,
Since we reviewed that policy last year with the principal and the counselor, did we report at all on the PSO students from last year?
not that I've seen,
How many we have and
yeah, not that I've seen,
maybe
yeah,
we can ask for that?
yeah.
Is there an update on how that went last year with,
It's a PSEO.
Well, we don't have as many as Saba, but with
even with
right,
hitting the
with Tibbin,
Sabi?
they came and met with us and they
I
had a
know,
new
but I'd like to know
coordinator
the
too.
final and what
Oh,
they're
yes,
looking at
yep.
for this year. And how many reported by May 30th that they were gonna continue for this year.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That they were supposed
Well,
to.
they're supposed to have their,
Their
schedule set by a certain
I
date.
mean, I know a few who have,
Yeah. And then just, like I said, during the year, we had instances of kids dropping out and we're still paying. So we have to
And
tighten
there
up on
were
that.
some pretty tidy sums were paid to
Yeah. So,
Giving Community College for PSU students. It was like
yeah,
$50,000-$60,000 in.
okay. We have a motion and a second to approve the PSEO contract with Wasabi Range College. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, item C is to approve the hire of Frank Serrar at Bachelor's Step 2, $45,226 for high school social studies position. We have a motion by Shelley. Is there support by Danielle? Comments or questions? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Time of hire is 5:37. Okay. It's gone. Item D is to accept the resignation from Alicia Lavarge as the Indian education position effective June 28th, 2021. Do we have a motion?
So made.
Motion is by Clarice, is there support?
Support.
By Jackie. Comments or questions? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, that ends the action portion of our agenda. Moving on to discussion. No items for discussion?
Yeah, I just included,
Oh, the
it's
social media.
informational, so you could see what's happening with your social media account. So they just provided an update and I just thought I'd share it.
It's looking pretty good.
So
What's going? Yeah.
we
So-
just sent them another 700 photos.
Okay. Okay, hearing no other information, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So made.
Motion is by Clarice, and support by Danielle. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned at 6:39. No, 5:39. 5:39. Thank you.
I just lost an hour now.
Hey, yeah, I get it. Can the school provide me some binoculars?
You're like, 5:37, 2 and 3.